In this video, I want to do a rebuttal to Neil deGrasse Tyson's little story. And this is a story he tells in like every speech he gives, every interview. Not every, but like a lot. He said it like a lot of times. I love studying science, biology, and of course, I love watching his interviews and speeches. And now he's really picked up steam in the last few years. And he's really a noticeable figure now. I think he has like 7 million followers on Twitter. So I'm kind of using the power of the internet to kind of possibly reach out to him. If not, strike up some productive conversation for anyone also interested in this stuff on the internet. But I think he's said this point. It's like one of his most favorite analogies. He said this numerous times, and I don't think anyone's really furthered it, challenged it, or really like made him think of it in different ways. And I think I can do that. So I really want to just get into it. So if you don't know what the story is, I'm just going to very briefly touch on it. And if you want to learn more, again, there's like countless videos and interviews where he brings up this analogy in more detail. But the basic idea is he's saying the difference between humans and chimps is like 1%, less than 1% of genetics. Like I think it's like 0.1% of difference in genetics. The rest is 99% the same. And so if that small percent is the only thing that separates us, then can you imagine if you inverted that and you looked at some, advanced intelligent species who's a lot smarter than us and is 1% or 5% or 10% even further along in that spectrum. And, you can only imagine how smart they are. Our best guy, Stephen Hawking, would be, as smart as their little kids. They would say something like, oh, that's Stephen Hawking. He can do astrophysics stuff and mathematics in his head. Well, our little kid Timmy can do that too. So, I mean, I've been wanting to say this for a while. I've heard this like years ago, but I've never done a video to kind of like do a rebuttal. But I just want to bring some really interesting points. And I think they're not just going to be random because they will be based on some level of decent logic and evolutionary science and basic biology. It's very fundamental stuff. So let's just get started. So why is this not possibly correct? Well, the first big reason is because it puts intelligence and arguably success in a very linear, binary, simple concept. And I'm all for simplifying things. Some people overcomplicate them, but sometimes you can also oversimplify things. So what do I mean by this? I think with Neil's argument, he's saying that, the only transgression, the only reason for the success of humanity and the difference between humans and chimps and the progression of the human species is intelligence. And it's also kind of implying that the only form of intelligence out there is academic intelligence, and that Stephen Hawking is the pinnacle of that. And of course, you can kind of already start to see where this is falling apart because there's all sorts of intelligence. And I kind of learned this the hard way, the long way and the hard way, which is that through dating. You can clearly see that this isn't how it works through dating. Turns out you can be really book smart, but really bad with girls. You could get all these straight A's, have all this knowledge on biology and physics, and no girls would like you. Well, why is that the case? Well, because when you explore the sexual selection and competition and survival process, which is still playing out every single day, you find that there's multiple forms of intelligence that are conducive to survival and reproduction that girls select for. Not just book academic smarts. In fact, that's probably the least attractive form of intelligence. It's still important and still attractive, but there's emotional intelligence, social intelligence, which leads to social proof and social status. And then there's practical intelligence. Can you, if you're thrown into a unknown environment, can you, fix the car? Can you get out of that situation like James Bond? There's multiple forms of intelligence at play, and that leads to a bigger question. Now, of course, which is that the success of human species, in a way, is more than just about even just intelligence. It's about all these different elements of a human. Now, all of them don't have to align to be successful. From my studies of successful people, I found, you need different amounts. But generally speaking, like there's persistence, there's work ethic, there's, all these different things playing out. There's things that, there's a lot of human to human competition for a female that's playing out. There's a lot of great books on this. But if you look at humans and males, you'll find that they're also being sexually selected for a number of other traits that are completely off from intelligence, such as is this person a good caretaker? Emotional intelligence. Can this person really understand your facial expressions, emotions, and be a good father, be a good husband, be a good leader of a tribe? So leadership is also being selected for, and potential for good leadership qualities and all these other things, and caretaking qualities and emotive qualities and loyalty qualities and ability to make money. So what that means, going back to that whole Neil deGrasse Tyson analogy, that linear model. So what that means is and I believe there's more of a chance that these beings already exist in this world, but if they do exist, and they are far beyond where we are in terms of how far they've advanced, then they will be advanced in more ways than just practical, specialized intelligence in a way. So that's one point. And so the second point is, I think there's a lot of merit to this whole theory that there's most likely intelligent life outside of us in this universe, and that it's not just one life form. There's probably lots of life out there. So let's go on that theory and let's just assume it's true. So let's assume that we're pretty late in the game, and there's probably tons and tons, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of living species that have developed and have had maybe thousands or millions or however many billions of years of a head start on us to advance. If that were to be the case, and there was a similar survival and sexual selection process, then they would not just be smarter than us in that specialized academic form of intelligence that Neil mentioned, with that like 1%, and being able to do mathematics or astrophysics in your head. They would be more advanced in a lot of other ways. Social intelligence, being able to win over and communicate effectively with others of their species so they don't get killed, tricked. They would have leadership, maybe even charisma, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, practical intelligence, all these things playing out together collectively as a species and individually in different varying amounts. And they'd be far beyond us in a lot of these aspects. So it wouldn't just be this like one thin line of intelligence. And I would even go as far as to theorize and argue that maybe they're not even that practically more intelligent than us. Maybe their mathematics skills aren't that great. They're equal to us. Now, why is that the case? Well, it's not just because of that theory going on where, different domains of skill set, mathematics and everything, or something like physics, evolve independently of us. There's some people who theorize that, a species can be highly more advanced than us, millions of years more advanced, but still be falling behind in mathematics because of some type of independent development theory. I'm not even saying because of that. I'm arguing that this could be the case because when you look at some of these people right now in our society who are very skilled at mathematics to a genius or prodigy level, are they really the most successful people at life? Are they, do they make that much money? Are they really the ones who like survive the best, have the best wives, have the prettiest wives? I'm not saying the prettiest wives are the best wives, but when you look at some of these people, yes, some of them do really well. Some of them make a decent amount of money, but they're sure as heck maybe not millionaires, let alone billionaires, or have they really changed or impacted the world like some of these other iconic people? So that begs the question of whether that really is the key to humanity's success. And of course, success is such a broad, vague term. Like, what does that mean? So what I'm arguing is that we are definitely being sexually selected for a lot of other things. And I think there is a bit of maybe hubris or ego to think that our success is focused on this practical book academic form of intelligence that we hold to such high self-esteem. And of course you can sit there and like keep honoring that, but sometimes if the results are not showing, like in my dating life, you got to face the facts. So that's just one thing. I think I can keep going on. I mean, there's all these other interesting things I would love to ask this guy Neil, and all these other different angles I can go off. But the memory on my iPhone is getting really low, so I have to wrap it up very quickly. So the next real quick thing I want to touch on is what Stephen Hawking says. He basically said, and Neil touches on this often, and Michio Kaku, they talk about this off. They've all mentioned stuff like this. Basically, Stephen Hawking said that if intelligent life was out there, it would not be pretty if they found Earth. They would probably kill us, take our resources, and leave, enslave us, something like that. And that was based off his examination of humans and how they interacted with other humans when the more advanced society with the better warfare weapons met a less developed society. Now there's numerous problems in my opinion with this. I could be wrong, but I just want to pose these in case they weren't taken into account. The first is the fact that of course you're using one rose-colored perception to predict another species that you know nothing about. You're using Earth's species, specifically human history, to predict some other species that's maybe completely different. Now that's the first thing, and again, arguably, to be transparent and acknowledge my own faults, I do think I kind of use this myself with that earlier argument to a certain degree, with that whole sexual selection thing and the advancement of intelligence. So that may be true, and my theory might be wrong too. But the second reason I think that this may not be true is because, yes, humans did some really screwed up, effed up stuff to other humans, and it's so true. And looking at history, I mean, it's a horrible thing, but I guess it's just human nature. But if you do look at if you take a more thorough look at human society, yes, 99% of the time, same thing played out. But if you start talking to some history buffs, if you look at some history, Or you look at the modern times, that was not always the case. In fact, even now, look at what Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has done to help people in countries and economies that are way less developed than the United States. And yet they're spending their time, they have that compassion and empathy and a little bit of emotional intelligence to do that. So it's not always the case. And then on top of that, there have been really underdeveloped human civilizations where we've kind of left them alone because they were so undeveloped, and we just let them develop more before revealing our presence. So that may be something that aliens can do. And then another thing on top of that is potentially this whole any type of charity. I think Richard Branson's involved in a lot of charities as well with the Virgin United Group, and him as well as Bill and Melinda's foundation. They're actually doing the reverse, which is they're spending all this money and time to go to these less advanced civilizations, and they're spending their time to ship vaccines, resources, and all these things to help improve the economy and expedite their development. So I think right now we're kind of just like at the very beginning tip of our timeline as a developing civilization. I mean, 200 years ago we were kind of just like really dumb, really. We didn't have cars or any of that. We were kind of just like sitting there chopping wood, and we didn't have TVs or electronics or any of that. We were just like getting started. So now we're starting to ramp up on a evolutionary exponential scale in terms of our development. And so obviously, since we're just getting started, I mean, 1,000 years is a blink of an eye compared to these highly developed advanced species out there. So most likely, another theory is that this is already a theory I already mentioned, but a good theory to maybe think of is that maybe they know of our existence and they're not so stupid or so arrogant to think that we're not intelligent, as Neil phrases it, but that they're smart enough to notice our potential. But kind of like a safari or a preserve or reserve, they know of us and they're just leaving us there to develop. They're not killing us off. They didn't stop our development before we could have prevented it, which is almost by definition, our existence may be a sign, if they're aware of us, a sign that they're so far developed from us that they're aware of us and they're compassionate enough to let us grow, and they may even be willing to see where we lead. And since we're just at the starting cusp of our development as a species, they're just letting it go through. There's no point in coming in and doing anything yet. But again, that's just a theory. I mean, arguably, it could be completely disproved by the fact that, hey, if they're trying to encourage us to develop faster, why don't they, drop in a few hints here and there? Why don't they just, throw down a few bits of knowledge here and there so that we can speed up the process faster? Maybe they are, and we're not noticing it. Maybe they're beaming in, little bits of encouragement. I don't know. I mean, if they're that advanced, they could do whatever they want. So I think that in and of itself is really interesting. And of course, there's all these other interesting theories that could be true. Maybe the universe and the birth of the universe is simply a petri dish, and there's an infinite or billions of petri dishes of other universes out there. I got that from the movie Men in Black. And then there's this other theory. Okay, I'm going to conclude it here. But my final theory is that maybe, the universe is expanding, but there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on outside of the expansion range where the laws of physics and the laws of the universe don't apply. I mean, when you think about it, the rules are very, defined and stagnant, but they're kind of random. I mean, they're normal to us, but really weird when you think about it. I mean, it could be completely bizarre to another universe. Like the fact that we're pulled down to the ground and we kind of have to push off the ground to move. It's kind of weird to any other species. It's kind of like, what the heck? You're glued to the ground all the time because of this thing called gravity. That's really weird. Or what the heck? 1+1 = 2. And like if you fall into this hole, like you come out here. No, in our universe, if you go into this hole, it's a complete mind fuck. Like you take this door, you open it, and you're on the other side of the world, and every door you open is just random assortment of craziness, because that's just the laws of the screwed up universe we live in, but it's normal to us. So I don't know. I'm just riffing at this point. Maybe one day Neil will watch this and actually think it's pretty cool, but nonetheless, just this humble kid who thinks this is some pretty cool stuff. It's getting late. Good night.